weekend. We're mostly sunny this afternoon, gusty winds, high of 80. Mostly clear, 62 tonight. Mostly sunny, breezy, 83 tomorrow. 20% chance of showers tomorrow night. Sunday, slight chance of showers and thunderstorms. Staff meteorologist John Weatherby, Money Radio 1510 and 99.3 FM.
75 degrees now with the Dow down 127 points at 17,707. The NASDAQ down 49 at 47.56. S&P 500 down 20 at 2,056. Reporting for Money Radio, I'm Ken Morgan.
The views expressed on the following program do not necessarily reflect the views of Money Radio staff, management, or advertisers, and do not represent an offer to buy or sell any securities. Some interviews heard on this program may be sponsored by the participants. It's time for Health Futures with Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth. This is Arizona's only show dedicated to providing you with expert advice on how to live a longer, healthier, and happier life. To learn more, call 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Bob Roth.
Good afternoon. My name is Bob Roth, and you're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. We're a weekly show found right here on Money Radio 1510 AM, 99.3 FM, and on the World Wide Web at moneyradio1510.com. We're coming at you live from the Scottsdale Air Park. It is April 29th. It's hard to believe this is the last Friday of April. It's 71 degrees, and we don't get this kind of weather this close to the end of April, early May, so we're cherishing that. And one of my guests said that we might get rain this weekend. Let's hope so. We definitely need it. If you're just tuning in, we are a show called Health Futures for a reason. Our show is about how our older adult population can live a healthier, happier life. And how do we do this? We bring outstanding guests on the show. And my name being Bob Roth, your host, I and my family own a home care agency, and we provide home care services to our aging adult population, enabling them to age successfully in place. And how do we do that? We do that by providing exceptional caregivers, and those caregivers assist them in their activities of daily living and affording them that opportunity. And as I said last week and weeks before, we're always looking for outstanding caregivers. So if you're listening in and you may be one of those people, or you might have a friend, family member, neighbor, has that caring spirit that wants to make a difference in somebody's life and help them and enable them to live out their life in their home, please have them call Cypress Home Care Solutions, 602-264-8009. So, back to the show. The show is about how to live a healthier, happier life. We bring outstanding guests, and today's no different. I've got two guests in the studio, and let me introduce them. I've got Kevin Haselhorst, Dr. Kevin Haselhorst. He's a ER physician at Arrowhead. That's in Abrazo Hospital on the west side. And I've got Robin Bibb. She's with Summit Hospice Care. She's the executive director, and she is also a physician assistant, has over 25 years experience in the family practice medicine business, as well as has been in the hospice business for a few years now and understands that side of the business. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Bob. How are you?
It's good to have you on the show, and a big day that we had just a couple weeks ago was National Healthcare Decisions Day. And Kevin, you're a repeat performer on our show. We had you on April 10th of 2015, and we were talking about advanced directives. We were talking about this great book that you wrote called Wishes to Die For. And I want to really have a conversation with you guys and really talk about the need to really memorialize your wishes, because you get to see people in the ER that really need to really have these plans in place, because real life stuff is happening by the moment. And Robin, you deal with this in your practice, both in the family practice world, but also in hospice, dealing with end of life.
Bob, you're so correct. That's exactly why I wrote the book, is because when people arrive in the emergency room, very rarely had they anticipated these life-threatening, life-changing events. And there's a lot of fear that drives their decision-making instead of having their wishes in the forefront of their mind. And that's why anticipating these situations are paramount to people living the life that they intended to live and not to sort of suffer the consequences of not pre-thinking about what's important to them.
These are discussions that are not easy to have. And, Kevin, you and I have talked about this before on the show. I mean, it's not like, tomorrow, Saturday morning, you're going to wake up and call your mom and dad and say, hey, you know what, I was listening to Health Futures, and they were telling me that we need to start having a plan and memorialize our wishes or your wishes on how you would like to see your end of life. This is an ongoing conversation.
Yeah, and particularly it's a conversation you have with yourself first. Many times people want to have this conversation with you, and a lot of times the patients I'll diagnose something, and the patients will say, what do I need to do about it? Why don't you take a minute for yourself and think about what you want to do about it first before I tell you what we need to do? It's a whole different change in the dynamic of how you proceed forward from feeling like you're in control of the situation versus you're just being obliged to what the doctor is telling you.
Yeah, and I think you make a very valid point, and it's certainly making sure those wishes are really understood, because when you do show up in the ER, like you deal with every day, many of those people can't really express what those wishes are.
And I tell you, going home and sleeping on it makes all the difference in the world in terms of letting it sit for a moment, get your heart into the situation, and then come out fighting. Don't go it with just sort of business as usual kind of feeling. You have to feel it inside if this is important to you. And I often recommend patients when they get a very serious diagnosis that's not necessarily life-threatening, rather than stay in the hospital, go home and think about it. Then go back and let's address it. Don't sort of get inundated into the system before you've had a chance to find your own grounding in how you're going to approach it.
And you're talking about a diagnosis, but let's talk about the person that gets hit by the bus. I mean, they don't have that time. So, I mean, it's time to have that conversation now while you're healthy.
Yeah, and it's different if you're 85 versus if you're 45.
Right.
And giving yourself permission to be 85 and not having to endure a recovery period that may not be merciful.
Exactly.
I think it comes down to the quality of life that you're really wanting and hoping for and having that discussion about it. If you have that conversation earlier than later when you're dealing with a crisis and going into the emergency room or having some type of an event that you're faced with that you have to make a quick decision, you don't know if you're making the right decision. Whereas Dr. Haselhorst is saying is that take your time, talk about this now, get the information, and then think about it. So God forbid something does happen, you're talking about it, you can actually make that decision and feel comfortable with it at that time.
Yeah, the issue of quality of life is important that you define that now. What's important to you? What abilities do you still want to be able to maintain? If you can't live semi-independently and you're total dependent care, is that really quality of life to you? Because most people are sort of become accustomed to a way of being, but forget that this way of being was never what they intended to live their life.
The optimum word is quality.
And here's the thing, you can change your mind at any time. That's the big thing. If you have some perception of what you want to do now and things change down the road, that's okay. The point is we're having a conversation about it and we're talking about it and making those decisions.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would distinguish quality of life from quality of character. I think many people feel the need to fight anything that comes before them, but they don't always necessarily realize that they're fighting against a losing battle and that their sense of quality or self-worth maybe gets mixed up in a larger context of, again, self-worth probably, that isn't really fair to that person who is dealt a hand by fate and hasn't really reconciled the idea that they're not supposed to suffer.
Right. And it's interesting because your perspective, being an ER physician, and Robin, your perspective, being in the hospice business versus being in the family practice business, is very different. Because a lot of time you see these people when trauma has happened. And I know, and we're up against a break right now, we'll talk a little bit more about it in the second segment. You know, a lot of these decisions should have been made long before they showed up into the ER. That's our music, but we've got one segment down. We've got three more. We got a lot more to cover about these end-of-life conversations. And I've got two experts in the house right now. I've got Dr. Kevin Haselhorst from Arrowhead Hospital, and I've got Robin Bibb from Summit Hospice Care. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. I'm your host, Bob Roth. We will be right back.
Hi, I'm Corey Scheidler, owner of Core Fitness. My team of certified personal trainers want to help you look great and get into great shape. We'll listen to your needs and develop a tailored workout that will get you results. We help our clients lose weight, improve their balance, get stronger, and feel awesome. You will have more confidence whether out in the town or playing your favorite sport. You can try us out for 21 days for $21. Call us at 480-620-3000. Email us at Corey, C-O-R-Y, at corefitnessaz.com.
Hi, this is Colonel Kurt Gallegos, Commander of the Air Force Reserve's 944th Fighter Wing at Luke Air Force Base here in Arizona. Serving part-time in the Air Force Reserve in Arizona will allow you to advance your civilian career or continue your education. You will receive excellent training, educational assistance, and many other benefits. I encourage you to start your adventure in the Air Force Reserve by going to afreserve.com or calling 800-257-1212. This message is sponsored by the Air Force Reserve and aired by the Arizona Broadcasters Association and this station.
Is the thought of another stock market meltdown concerning you? Here's Ray Lucia Jr., chairman of Lucia Capital Group.
Once again, stock market volatility is weighing on many investors' minds. A Wells Fargo poll taken in the first quarter of this year said 40% of investors now feel as though stock market volatility is here to stay. And another 40% said market volatility adds stress to their lives. If you're concerned about exposure to market losses, learn more about a risk buffer strategy. It's designed to potentially give you some shelter from losses when the markets have deep drops and still gives you the potential for growth up to a cap that you may customize.
Learn more about where our risk buffer strategy may fit in your investment mix. Call Lucia Capital Group, 800-644-1150, 800-644-1150. A risk buffer strategy involves purchase of a variable annuity, which is a long-term investment product. Guarantees are based on the claims-paying ability of the issuer, subject to their terms and conditions. Ray Lucia Jr. is the CEO of Lucia Securities, LLC, member FINRA SIPC, and affiliate of Lucia Capital Group.
Join Daniel Bustamante, co-founder of Landshark Analytics and LongShortRadio.com, and learn to trade from the pros. Tuesday, 4:30 p.m. on the Financial Review.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Roth. You're listening to Health Futures, Taking Stock in You. If you're just tuning in, we're on our second segment, and I've got Dr. Kevin Haselhorst and Robin Bibb in the studio today, and we're talking about end-of-life wishes. We're talking advanced directives. We talked about the National Healthcare Decisions Day that just happened on April 16th, and we're talking about real stuff that happens. And trust me, this isn't sexy, but it's important stuff to talk about. And I will tell you that Dr. Haselhorst and I and Robin, we were talking about at the break. We were talking about Prince. And that's something that's very relevant to all of us. Unfortunately, our entertainment world, is certainly in our political world, makes the news every day. And certainly Prince has been in the news for the last week or so since his passing. But here's a guy who's 57 years old and left no advance directives, no will, no living will, nothing, and has an estate worth over $300 million. How does that happen?
And Bob, as I mentioned, here's a guy who's so in control of his music and his life, was not in control of his end of life. And that's incongruent with a person's nature. It doesn't make sense to me, other than fear getting in the way of reconciling or understanding that concept or the need to claim that part of your life as much as your real life.
I think the interesting thing is that we live our daily life. We get caught up, and as we age, we don't want to think about those things, especially those individuals I said, like in their 30s, 40s, 50s. We are living out our daily lives. We're not thinking about our end of life. And so why would we want to have these things or have these discussions? And no one likes to talk about these things. So we have an individual who is 57 years old, unfortunately, who has passed away and has this enormous estate and all these family members that are coming out of the woodworks, and they're trying to figure figure out what was his wishes. And no one knows for sure what his actual wishes are. And obviously we can't go back and ask him.
Right.
So that's the biggest problem here is we're not having these conversations on a regular basis. We need to be, and looking at, again, that quality of life, what we want, if this does occur, what of our end of life want to look like, and when's the right time.
And imagine if he was brought back and the ER physician, the EMTs were able to bring him back and he was on life support. Mm-hmm. He didn't have anything memorialized. I mean, right. in absent of that, it's actually probably a good thing he passed away. Had he been in that state, because then what would have happened?
That's fascinating, because I just had a patient recently who had a hemorrhage in his brain, and it was probably determined that he had a brain tumor, and that is what he bled into. And in some respects, it was a blessing in disguise, because you said it could have been a lengthy course of radiation or chemotherapy or other things to treat the brain tumor. And what was heart-wrenching for that wife in that moment was actually maybe a blessing. And I think it gave her some solace in realizing that, she didn't have any say in the matter, but if she had her choice, she probably would have chosen for him to die sooner than later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see this every day.
Yeah.
You definitely see this every day. And Robin, in your capacity in hospice, you're dealing with end of life. And I don't expect you to give me a finite number, but, what would you say the percentage of your patients that you care for have already gone through all of this?
It's amazing when I actually have a conversation and we talk about hospice itself, is that they don't understand what their disease process is or why we're having this conversation. For whatever reason, they're either not, hearing what's been told to them by clinicians, or they're not accepting it, or there's a multitude of reasons. So when I come into this, the first thing I ask those individuals is, what do you know about hospice? And get their understanding really where they're coming from and what's their expectations and how do they feel about all of this, especially being the patient. Because you have to remember, as we just mentioned, even with Prince, it was not just the individual, it's all the family members who are also involved, as Dr. just said as well. It's the wife, it's everyone else. So this is not a decision based only with the patient. It's based with the family members as well to do the right thing. And when is that time to do the right thing, or if they're doing the right thing?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned family, and I really think that hospice does a really good job of bringing the whole family together, and home care and hospice work really well together because it's our job as home care providers, caregivers, is really to keep up the household and making sure that the family's getting their meals, the kitchen's being kept up to date, making sure the laundry's being done, the dishes are being washed, and as well as tending to the loved one that is actively dying. But we do that so that the family can have time, quality time with their loved one. And the only way they can get quality time is by being on hospice, because hospice is making that person comfortable and not in this agonizing pain that they're probably dealing with.
I want to comment about Robin's, when you have these conversations about patients' medical conditions, and I may say, do you have any health conditions or health problems? And they'll say no, and then they'll show me this whole sheet of medicines that they're taking. Or the family will say, are you kidding me? We are, who? And I think they really are living in a state of, I'm not looking for any trouble, I don't have any problems.
State exactly. And that state being denial.
Yeah,
right,
exactly. And
I just think the bottom line is that they don't fully have an understanding, for whatever reason, of truly what's happening with their bodies. And the fact that I am explaining, when I'm the hospice person coming in and explaining this at this point, from a clinical standpoint, I do talk about the evolution of how the heart works and how the lungs work and how the kidneys work when you have a diabetic. All those three things are important. Or how the brain works with dementia and why this is happening and what the prognosis is, and really spending the time, which I am very fortunate. I do get to spend time. Most of the clinicians, either it's in the ER or the hospitalist or even the family doc, they have a limited time. I do not. So right. I am fortunate with that. So explaining all those things.
And I'm always fascinated. In particular, my father, who's on hospice right now, he never really wanted to know for people to know that he was on hospice. But at the same time, what he was saying is, I don't want to know I'm dying.
Yes.
And please don't talk to me about this.
Yes.
And I'll tell you, the palliative nurse or the hospice nurse came out and asked him point blank, do you have your funeral arrangements in order? This is a man who didn't want to talk about this subject necessarily or have to deal with it. And I think people should have permission not to deal with it, and we still know how to treat them without having them to sign, and necessarily having to sign their life away.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up. And I'm curious, you know, Kevin and Robin, how do you have that conversation? Because there's so many that are out there that don't want to talk about death. They're scared of dying. And, you know, there's that misnomer about hospice, and I just dealt with it today, and we'll talk about it maybe in the next segment, that they don't want to go on hospice or tell their loved ones that they're on hospice because it means it's the end. And they don't want them to give up.
Let's be honest. I mean, if you have a great life and you're surrounded by things that you are not ready to leave, who wants to talk about this? I mean, that's part of the issue. Let's be honest about it. It's a finality of being here on this earth. And so it is a very difficult conversation to have, but it's important. We all come into this earth and are born. We are all going to leave this earth and pass away. So it's an important cycle of life. To truly understand it and have that fear taken away is, I think, empowering, and then allows those individuals at that point to make a decision whether they're truly ready to accept it. We don't have to force it down their throat that they're passing away. There's no reason for that. That's going to happen naturally. That's going to happen as this evolution. But at the same time, having these conversations and talking about it. There's only one last thing I would say regarding that, is that the way that I have it and explain it is, you know, maybe 30 years ago, I'm aging myself now, maybe 30 years ago, we used to whisper the word cancer, right? And no one wanted to talk about it because it was an immediate death sentence. No one wants to talk about this bad H word, hospice care, because they think it's immediate death. And it shouldn't be necessarily a bad thing if we embrace that, this, you know, the information and have the information. I think it's really important.
Got a quick question for you on hospice. How do we get people, and I'm talking about sick people, to begin hospice sooner? Because every single client that I have that started hospice, I try to encourage to get them started sooner, and they don't. And then when they do, what do you think they say?
I wish I'd have gone on sooner.
I wish I had gone on sooner. It's what an incredible service.
Same thing with assisted living. Yes. Nobody wants to believe that they have to give up certain privileges that they had before in living independently, or to acknowledge that they can't do what they can no longer do. So it's the same conversation when you perhaps have to move from assisted living to a skilled nursing facility. And how we talk about hospice is we talk about palliative care, and we never talk about hospice. It's understood that when you're receiving palliative care, you take a turn for the worst. You receive end-of-life care, given, you know, this is, as the situations evolve. You don't have to shame people into telling them that they're dying. You have to know, you have to recognize who's dying and how to treat them.
No, good point. Good point. And certainly talking about palliative care, which is really kind of a new concept. I mean, you know, we know it in this profession, but I think, you know, educating people that there is such a thing called comfort, and you don't need to be in such pain. And I'm going to tell you, I'll tell you a story real quick. I was back in Baltimore a year ago this past October, and a real dear friend of my family members came up to me, and I knew her husband had passed away. She gave me a big hug, and I said hello, and I said, I'm really sorry that Bobby's passed away. And she told me it didn't have to be the way it did. She learned after the fact that he suffered in pain for nearly a year and didn't need to take those heroic means, and it could have been a whole lot better. She said, how do we do this? And I said, we got to get the word out. With that, we're up against a break. My name is Bob Roth. You're listening to Health Futures. We're down one segment number 2, and we'll be right back.
We pause for a look at the world's news. Then we're back with Money Talk. We're Money Radio 1510 and 99.3 FM.
GOP presidential candidate Donald Trump forced to walk down the side of the road into a back entrance of a hotel in Burlingame, California, where he was delayed in appearing before the California Republican Convention. Jeremy Diamond tells us some of the several hundred protesters had blocked the road, describing the scene for us now.
Police officers here with helmets on, batons in their hands, essentially standing in front of the Hyatt Regency Hotel here. More police officers than there were before when protesters were initially successful in actually pushing over the barricades and rushing towards the doors.
CNN reporting a Russian jet fighter did a barrel roll over a U.S. reconnaissance plane in international airspace coming within 100 feet of the American plane. Barbara Starr monitoring the situation at the Pentagon.
The U.S. is very opposed to these kinds of maneuvers. They are very dangerous, the U.S. says, and they can lead to absolute disaster in the skies.
This amid more aggressive Russian military behavior. I'm Michael Toscano.
Hi, my Ford needs parts.
I'll put Jigsaw on it, the specialist who uses Motorcraft parts, and only Motorcraft parts.
Good deal.
Actually, this is the deal.
Now get a $50 rebate by mail on any Motorcraft brake service when you use your Ford Service credit card. Subject to credit approval, taxes extra, rebate by prepaid debit card, pads or shoes on most vehicles, one axle, exclusions apply. See your participating Ford dealer for rebate details through 6/30/16.
When your Ford needs service, you need the specialist.
He learned to pitch in your backyard. Now his team's coming over to celebrate their high school championship. So you need to patch those bare spots fast. Pennington One Step Complete has a revolutionary formula that repairs bare spots in only 2 weeks or less. Pennington's been trusted since 1945, and now it works even faster. One Step Complete from Pennington. Honest green. Get your lawn ready for any occasion. Head to your local retailer to pick up One Step Complete.
A little good advice can go a long way. A long way toward meeting your retirement goals, that is. You'll get it right here on Money Radio every day.
Women face different challenges when it comes to retirement. Women on average work less than men and often face a different set of health concerns. Most important, women live longer. Find out how to plan for retirement as a woman on My Smart Retirement every Saturday morning from 10 to 11. CFP Nancy Fleming will guide you through retirement as a woman right here on Money Radio. Want to learn more about preparing for retirement as a woman? Then attend Fleming Financial's Women's Worth Tuesday, May 10th in Gilbert. Sign up today at 480-632-8770. 632-8770. 770.
Everybody, there's a party going on inside of my spice cabinet. Does that sound crazy to you? It's not that crazy to me. I went to Sevenfold Spice. This is the word 7 spelled out. SEVEN, foldspice.com. And I got the All-Star Smoker Rub, the Burger Spice Blend, the Garlic Spice Blend, the Habanero Spice Blend, and the Lemon Herb Spice Blend. This stuff is unbelievable. All natural ingredients, preservative-free, MSG-free, gluten-free. And right now, if you go to sevenfoldspice.com and at checkout you put in the promo code RADIO, you're going to get either like 10% off your order, or you're going to get free shipping, or someone's going to kiss you on the mouth. That's actually not going to happen. I wish it was. I'd be buying a lot of stuff there. That would be good for me right now. Go to sevenfoldspice.com, promo code RADIO, and get a party started in your spice cabinet.
There's only one thing guaranteed in life. You will die. Are you prepared? A will and trust is only one step in the process. Now, what do you do with them? Papers get destroyed. Combinations to safes get lost. DocumentTrunk.com provides you with a safe, proactive approach to storing and distributing your last words. Don't take chances with your family's future. DocumentTrunk.com is the only place guaranteed to be there. Visit DocumentTrunk.com today
and enter coupon code MONEYRADIO to get your first 3 months free.
LiveWatch helps you connect and respond up to 10 times faster in an emergency. LiveWatch has no long-term contracts. Save up to 50% off home security. Call 855-LiveWatch or visit livewatch.com.
I'm Bruce Vail with Your Money Now. A closely watched gauge of consumer sentiment declined this month to the lowest level in 7 months, the latest evidence of growing worry about the economy's momentum. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index continued a slow decline late this month due to weakening expectations for future economic growth. That may have been due to the government report this week showing the economy grew just slightly during the first 3 months of the year. Stocks remain lower today with the Dow Jones Industrial Average down 97 points. The Nasdaq Composite is off 39. The S&P 500 is down 15 points. Fresh on the heels of the return of the S'mores Frappuccino, Starbucks says it is bringing back the birthday cake Frappuccino for a limited time. The drink is flavored with vanilla and hazelnut syrups and topped with pink whipped cream. Oil prices were down today, but just slightly. Crude futures fell 11 cents, settling at $45.92 a barrel. That's Your Money Now.
In my line of work, I'm trying to make a difference, not $1 billion.
but I do want to be able to save for the future. So this year I partnered with TIAA to help me map out what I should be doing. Together, we came up with a personalized plan for my finances. And now it seems like a life of rewarding work just might pay off for a lifetime.
See how we're helping those who do good do well at the new TIAA.org. TIAA, created to serve, built to perform.
This is an alert. If your business or church is building this year, you're about to pay more than you should. This could mean thousands of dollars more for your office, retail space, church, or warehouse. A General Steel building can save you as much as half the cost and time of similar conventional construction. And we're offering rebates of up to $20,000 to help you build today. Call General Steel for free information that could save you thousands. Call 866-95-STEEL. 866-95-STEEL. That's 866-95-STEEL.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Roth, and you're listening to Health Futures, taking stock in you. We're on our third segment. If you just missed the first two, you can catch them up on our website at cypresshomecare.com. Click on the radio button up on the top or halfway down, and you can catch the two segments prior to this one. And you can also catch about 100 others that we've been bringing to you for the last 3 years. So I've got in the studio, if you just missed the first two segments, I've got Robin Bibb from Summit Hospice Care, and I've got Dr. Kevin Haselhorst from Arrowhead Hospital. But also, you should note that he is an author of a book called Wishes to Die For.
And my website is wishestodiefor.com.
Wishestodiefor.com. You can order your book on your website, but also on Amazon too?
Correct. It's available on Amazon.
Wishes to Die For from Dr. Kevin Haselhorst.
I also blog frequently, and I think me connecting the dots give people a sense of where I'm coming from in my business of emergency medicine and bringing it to real life through my family, through my relationships, other contexts of even opening day, being a prospect of when the gates of heaven are open, how you might equate the that sense of wonder around that new beginnings.
Right. I like that metaphor there. It's perfect. And also, I got to tell you, I mean, we were talking too at the break. You're very physically fit. You take care of yourself. And I think a lot of it attributes to the fact that what you see in the ER, but at the same time, you must thrive on this stuff. I mean, your adrenaline must be going when people come in. I mean, everyone that works in the ER. I mean, you've got to be, that word stat. I mean, you're working stat on things immediately.
Yeah, it's interesting, the experiences and going back. And now that I'm becoming more writing about this material, it's like journaling things and putting the dots together. These are important awarenesses that I think all people need to sort of bring home personally, to think about as well, that this isn't just my job. This is everybody's business in terms of their health and their well-being. Yeah, I'm active in yoga. I'm active in working out and hiking, those sorts of things that nurture my spirit. I find many people having a lot of trouble coping in life, and that's part of they haven't really cultivated their spirit around what moves them and what makes them, what nurtures them. And the anxiety overlays most of their ability to manage their health issues. If you can't control your anxiety, particularly around end-of-life issues, you really are stuck in a rut. There's really a very no-win situation. And
no, I think those are very profound statements. And honestly, I mean, we are in a society where we just get bombarded with information. I mean, we see it with our children on devices and computers. We see it even with ourselves. You get into social media and you go to open up Facebook, and then an hour and a half later, you're like, whoa, where did the time go? And one of the things that we are troubled with in society, and I mean, I find it, very therapeutic to ride in my car and just turn everything off. You remember the day where you just, allowed your mind to wander and ponder thoughts and come up with ideas? There's very little original ideas anymore because, we're listening to podcasts, we're listening to the news, we're listening to cable, we're getting bombarded with information, and it's time that sometimes we should think about pausing and reflecting on ourselves and our lives and some of the discussion that we talk about in the first two segments, and I want to talk about in this segment and our last one about end-of-life issues.
Unplug.
Yes.
How do you unplug from life in general? It's an interesting concept.
Yeah, actually, ironically, about last week was my birthday. It was the first time probably in 10 years that I actually unplugged. I said, I'm going to do something for myself, and decided to go for a massage. And I actually left not only the phone off, but at home.
Good for you.
Which was amazing to do for the first time ever. But it was important to also take that mind, body, and soul in an account and say, I need to do this for my own well-being, and therefore I can then help others. And I thought that was the first time, and it was the most amazing thing to really be truly unplugged.
And I wasn't expecting our conversation to go this way, but that's a great message for our listening audience, and one that we should take inventory of as well as unplugging.
Her concept, I want to just expand on this idea. When we've received a massage, most of us feel like if I could die in this moment, I'd be the most. It would be a glorious experience, and I really think people need to embellish that on some level, because there's nothing wrong with passing with a sense of bliss and delight. I don't see that in my profession. I see people in anguish and in turmoil and in shame and embarrassment, and I don't get it. I don't understand, other than we've set up this is how the experience is, but I want to change that concept.
I think that's why hospice came about. I think if we truly understand what we're trying to do, in both palliative and giving that comfort and, at that care level, that this should be a positive blessing type situation. And as you said earlier, Bob, is that if they would have known sooner to go on and to have the support. And it's not just about comfort with medications. It's about, as you said, support with the family. There's a whole team of people helping out. So this is really as a unit, and in order to give all different facets, whether it's spiritual, whether it's emotional from the social workers or the chaplain services, or whatever have you. It is all encompassing to get to that point, because I feel bad that they're going into your ER and that they're having these issues in the first place. And if we can do something to help them medically, fabulous. Let's do it. Let's make that situation better. But if they can't, where are we having this conversation? At what time? You have this great conversation in the emergency room, and you're one of, I think, the few and who are amazing at what you're doing and really giving your patients that benefit.
But it's just understanding patients don't really want to be there. I get that when that dementia person comes in, they don't understand why they are there. They're being punished like they were just called into the principal's office for some reason. They know something's wrong, and I tell them everything's okay, you can go home, and they jump for joy at the prospect of going home. I tell you, that's the greatest gift I give people, is giving them permission to leave the emergency room and not have to deal with the consequences of having some medical illness.
Right.
And I would say, the end of life is not a medical condition, it's a spiritual journey. And until we get that concept...
I love how you said that. It's a spiritual journey, and that really describes it best. I think one of the things that helps me, as well as it helps my listening audience, is really describing scenarios and case examples. And I shared with both of you before we even started the show something that has happened to one of my friends as well as a client with his father. And here's a guy who is, in the Alzheimer's spectrum, if you would. He was living on his own. He had a bad heart, and he went into the hospital to get his pacemaker changed. And that's number one. Dr. Haselhorst, you brought that up. Why did he have the pacemaker changed? I don't know. But after having the pacemaker changed, he had an event happen, and he found himself in the ICU. And he's been in the ICU now for 8 days. And, I get an SOS from the son saying, hey, I need some help here. They're just providing him comfort meds. This place, is not a place that is comfortable at all. There's all these machines, all these noises. People are coming and going. Is there a way we can get him into a room? And one of the things I asked him, Robin, was, have anyone talked to you about hospice? And to my, really, how should I say, my disgust or dismay. Thank you very much. My dismay, they didn't have that conversation.
I think it's even an interesting observation, the fact that you understand the business, we're all in the business, and that you're the one bringing it up, that they're in a hospital setting that definitely have resources available to them by clinicians, social workers, nurses, whatever have you, that can bring up that conversation. But unless you're educated like yourself and us here today, that you understand to be asking that question and questioning, what are we doing here, and where's the quality, and what is the outcome going to happen. And so I think you did him an amazing thing about giving him that question.
Yeah, and I'm embarrassed the fact that was never brought up by the institution, that we need to do a better job. We got a lot of work to do, and our show is one way to educate our consumers and our general audience, but we also have to educate the medical profession. We're up against a break. I can't believe we're down 3 segments. We got one more segment, and I know Dr. Haselhorst has a few questions or a few things he wants to say, so when we come back, the floor will be yours.
Thank you.
Now it's time for the Secured Financial Solutions Educated Investor Series.
Okay, what would you tell listeners who have an annuity in place and don't feel that they need any advice?
I would ask them, do you have enough confidence in your current advisor to get a second opinion? A lot of people feel ignorance is bliss, but when it comes to your health and wealth, I cannot stress enough how important it is to get a second opinion to validate and reinforce your understanding of your current situation.
So what can listeners do now if they are listening to the program and getting a second opinion?
Simply call our office at 800-957-5604, extension 200, to set up a time for a complimentary strategy session. Whether you own a high-risk, high-fee variable annuity or an old-generation income annuity, allow us to get your insurance carrier on the phone and ask the right questions so that you will end the strategy session with a much better understanding of what you currently own.
Did you say that you get the insurance carrier on the phone as well?
We want you to know that the information we are providing is accurate, and what better place to get that information than from the insurance carrier themselves. The insurance industry can have a very complicated language when it comes to understanding annuities, and how you ask the question can result in different answers. Allow one of our advisors to ask the right questions and gather all the facts about your existing annuity. Then it's our job to take this complicated language and simplify it so it's easy for you to understand. Once you have a complete understanding of your existing annuity, you can then make the educated decision if the one you have is in your best interest and is still accomplishing your goals.
Would you like to know which is the best annuity on the market? Then call Secured Financial Solutions, LLC at 800-257-5604, extension 200 to set up your strategy session. Or visit dreamretire.com.
Investment advisory services offered through Horder Investment Management, LLC, an SEC-registered investment advisor. Security transactions for Horder Investment Management clients are placed through TD Ameritrade, Trust Company of America, and ED&F Man Capital Markets. Annuity products are offered separately through Secured Financial Solutions, LLC.
Here Maps. Hit the open road with free offline turn-by-turn guidance that works anywhere. Get it for your phone at here.com/offline.
Now back to Health Futures, taking stock in you. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call 602-264-8009. Now, here's your host, Cypress Home Care Solutions, Bob Roth.
Welcome back. My name is Bob Roth, and I'm your host of Health Futures Taking Stock in You. We've got a lot of stuff to cover. We're on our 4th segment. If you missed the first 3, go up to cypresshomecare.com, and you can catch those first 3. I've got Robin Bibb in the studio. She's with Summit Hospice Care. I've not given your number out, so if you need to reach Robin, you can reach her at 602-535-8255. Or you can email her at rbibb, B-I-B-B, at summithospice.org. And if you need to reach Dr. Haselhorst, how do we reach you, Dr. Haselhorst?
You can reach me at Dr. H at wishestodiefor.com.
Dr. H at wishestodiefor.com. And if you want his book, you can get it from his website at wishestodiefor.com, or you can get it on Amazon.
Correct.
So you were about to say a thought, and we had to take a break. So the floor is yours, Dr. Haselhorst.
Well, I'm sitting with his son in the intensive care unit and feeling his pain about, I recognize my father is dying. Does anybody else here see that my father is dying? And I think that's the big heartache in family members who sense it, but nobody's saying anything. And as you mentioned, they were doing comfort care in the intensive care unit,
right?
Which is a misnomer. It's incongruent, which is kind of the frustration that he was feeling in this moment of, we're caring for my father in this sterile kind of institution instead of a home environment or a loving environment or a peaceful setting. There's lots of comings and goings around something that is totally unnecessary. And again, we go back to, is this medically necessary? We have to sit back and ask this each time the doctor orders a test. Mm-hmm. Is this medically necessary?
Well, exactly. And I mean, with this fellow, I mean, his father had a pacemaker replaced. I mean, why? I mean, the guy's in the throes of Alzheimer's. I mean, did he really go back to that? Is that something, should somebody have had the conversation with them saying, hey, this is what needs to be done?
You have to remember, you have to remember that you're going to the hospital to see doctors. You're going to the doctor's office to get their medical opinion. That's their job. Their job is to make you better if they can. I think you're asking a different question in the fact that you're putting it upon the patients then also, and those individuals or the loved ones, to say and question it, should we be doing something different? And I think that is something that we can talk about maybe, but at the same time, we're opening up this conversation on what do we need to do is right for that individual at that time. And that's a very different situation and conversation to have. If they would have had the conversation, I think, which we talked before, on why have the pacemaker change, as you said, at this age versus, and having that plan, like you were mentioning, that we're at this point now, we're not going to do this. This is the plan of care. We know that if the pacemaker fails, we're not going to continue replacing the pacemaker, and we're going to say we can do palliative care. This is the time to do this, and how does that look like?
What we're not taught in medical school is how not to give people hope. The message is always, got to give them hope.
Yeah.
Right.
And in that prospect, I keep doing things because in that message of giving them hope, there's always something more I can do for them. I can resuscitate a person who is, at end of life. I can put them in the intensive care unit because I can give them hope. When I remove hope from the situation, I can have a real conversation with the family about what we need to do to make their loved one comfortable.
We talked about your book, Wishes to Die For, and there's another really good book out there. We've talked about it here on the show, and you and I have talked about it as well. It's a book by Atul Gawande called Being Mortal. And I think, what he was trying to do, and I actually saw you, Dr. Haselhorst, when Jennifer Brokaw, Dr. Brokaw was here, talking about the same message and talking about everything's not curative. And she's on a crusade. She was a practicing doctor for over 20 years, and she left her practice.
From the ER.
From the ER, exactly. and she left her practice to educate medical students and doctors now that there is something other than curative. And, they don't teach that. That's what Atul Gawande was saying. They didn't teach that in medical school. They never taught doctors to say, you know what, we've done everything we can. Now it's time to make it comfortable. And that's the mission, right?
Well, Jennifer Brokaw is very concerned about the message around palliative care. And as you say, we understand it, but we don't really understand it, because part of understanding palliative care is recognizing it's the bridge between advanced care and end-of-life care. Mm-hmm. We need to have a middle ground for people to pick and choose whether or not they receive medical intervention or medical care. And in that context, I stand on one side of the stretcher and offer a patient everything that the medical system has to offer them. No one stands on the other side of the stretcher saying, you don't have to do any of this. I can take care of you without having to go through the system.
And it's okay to make that decision.
Exactly.
And it's okay. That's a very important message, that it is okay to say, I no longer want to do this. There's nothing wrong with that. There's absolutely nothing.
They are given permission.
Correct.
And you know what? If we were to give our listening audience some homework to do, it's the weekend. May 1st is going to happen on Sunday. This is something that, if you haven't had this conversation right now with your loved one, I think the three of us are all in agreement. Begin it now. Start having this talk.
I tell you, pick something to die from. pick a cause of death, and then you start labeling it. I know it's harsh to say that.
It is.
But at the same time, you begin to, there's only 5 things you're going to die of. Pick one. And that.
What are those 5 things? Give them to us.
Heart disease, lung disease, cancer, infection.
Stroke. There you go. I put you on the spot.
That was a test. You passed.
You did pass.
The appropriate pause of that.
There you go. You pulled that out of the...
Yeah, this is like the governor when he missed the 5 departments he was going to.
Yeah. From Texas.
Yeah. Governor Perry.
Governor Perry.
The bottom line is we're all going to pass away from something. We're all leaving this earth. We all are going to die at some point. So having this conversation is immense. And if we can choose, that's the other thing, we can choose our path. Whatever that path may be, we might not be able to choose the reason or the cause, as you said, those 5 things that we might pass away from, but we all are going to die. So why not have the way that you want to go and live out your life even at the end and make that decision? There's nothing wrong with that. And all these things are okay.
I did it my way.
Exactly.
I chose the way I was going to die, and I lived my truth.
Exactly.
In that experience, and I didn't, run away from it in some regard. It's and owning your parents, your genetic background, whatever your lot in life is, you embrace it, you embody it. You don't run away from it.
You don't run away from it, but you make your good days as good as they can be.
And you integrate it in your being. If you got high blood pressure, you pick that part of your life. You don't deny the fact that you have blood pressure. You don't deny you're diabetic. You make that part of your experience, and you become a much healthier person through it. You have a heart attack. The most healthiest people are the ones who have had heart attacks.
Well, certainly when you have a heart attack young, they say that those are usually healthy people because they're able to make adjustments and, fortify their life and make the most out of it.
Right.
And,
you got a wake-up call before the big event.
Exactly. And, we talked about health, and, I admired how you took care of yourself. And I would imagine, part of that is because what you see every day. And you mentioned diabetes. I mean, it's unbelievable how many people have type 2 diabetes out there, and it is such a preventable disease.
I have to say one last thing is the reason why I fell into hospice care is I am a cancer survivor, and that aha moment happened very young, and seeing that and practicing medicine and seeing all the patients. So understanding and facing that possibility of end of life was a huge impact. So that made definitely a difference.
Well, it's hard to believe we're at the end of our show, guys. Kevin, Dr. Haselhorst, thank you for being on the show again.
Thank you, Bob.
And I'm going to invite you back because this message is very, very powerful. And Robin, I know this is your first show.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed our show today.
It was great.
I know our audience did. I did. My name is Bob Roth. You're listening to Health Futures. Make it a great day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back at you next Friday.
There's no place like home. You've been listening to Bob Roth's Health Futures. If you have questions about your own or your loved one's future health care, call Cypress Home Care Solutions at 602-264-8009. That's 602-264-8009. Or visit cypresshomecare.com. Be sure to join Health Futures with Bob Roth every Friday at noon, right here on Money Radio 1510 and 99.3 FM.
If you're like most Money Radio listeners, you get a little busy sometimes, meaning you can't always hear your favorite shows. Now you can tune in anytime to one of the best retirement shows on the radio, Mastering Money, with wealth manager Steve Jurich and the doctor, Sinclair No. Heard weekdays at 8 a.m. live or at 5 p.m. or 6 p.m. or noon. It's really up to you. Download the Mastering Money app for your Apple or Android device or click on the podcast at masteringmoneyradio.com. See you there.
Money Radio 1510
and 99.3 FM.
Is KFNN Mesa Phoenix and K257 CD Phoenix. You've heard of the bucket strategy of investing, and that's why you should listen to Money Radio every weekday at 11 a.m. And you can call in with your questions. Right now, the Dow is down 59 points, S&P is down 11, and the NASDAQ down 31.
When people want to talk about money, this is the place they come to. And there's more on the way after this break for the latest news. And we begin now.